In this movie, we'll look at some of the elements of state machine diagrams that are known as pseudostates. The first is the choice pseudostate, which is similar to a decision in an activity diagram. The second is the junction pseudostate, which joins and splits transitions. The last is the history pseudostate, which holds information about a state machine that's used to re-enter it at the same state as it was left in. The choice pseudostate allows a transition to be split and one transition to be followed based on guard conditions. The guards are evaluated dynamically at the point that the transition reaches the choice pseudostate, so the evaluation is affected by any behaviours on the transition into the choice, which might change values of variables or objects in the guard conditions. The choice pseudostate is shown as a diamond. In the example here, select device is the trigger for the transition to the choice, and the guards select which of the outgoing transitions is executed. The junction pseudostate allows transitions to be merged into a single transition, split into multiple guarded transitions, or both. The guards are evaluated statically before any part of the compound transition is executed, so the evaluation isn't affected by any behaviours on the transition to the junction, which might change values of variables or objects in the guard conditions. The junction pseudostate is shown with a filled black circle. In this case, this is equivalent to the choice in the previous slide, as there's no behaviour on the select device transition that could affect the evaluation of the guards. The history pseudostate makes it possible to leave a state that has a nested state machine within it, and on returning to that state, to return to the correct state of the nested states at the first level of nesting. This is known as the shallow history pseudostate. It's shown by a capital H in a circle. In the example here, the user attempts to leave the page that's displaying the information for the use case directly control device via browser. This is detected and a dialog is displayed. So the user interface goes into the "Are you sure?" dialog state. If the user clicks OK, then the user interface carries on and leaves the page. If the user clicks cancel, then it returns into the display page state in whatever substate the page was in. If there are state machines nested more than one level deep, then the deep history pseudostate can be used. It's shown with an asterisk after the H. We'll add these in EA. We'll continue working with the directly control device via browser use case state machine. First, we'll add a choice pseudostate. I click on choice in the toolbox and then in the diagram. It needs the name device type. Now I'll add a new transition from device list to that choice. I'll set the trigger to be select device. Then I'll move the existing transitions from device list to the choice. Now I need to go into both of these transitions and remove the trigger select device because that's now in this new transition. I'll tidy up this diagram. I'll move the back transitions out of the way. In Enterprise Architect, if you position the cursor over a connector and press Ctrl Q, it adds a bend point into that connector. That's not the same for all modelling tools, obviously. Now I'll add the history pseudostate. First, I'll make some space for an additional state outside display page. Now I'll add the state called "Are you sure?" dialog. So I click on State in the toolbox and click on the diagram and type in the name. The transition Leave Page should now go to this dialog. I'll move the final state down here. Now I'll add the history state. So I click in the toolbox on History and then inside the display page state. It doesn't need a name. In EA, if I want to change it to a deep history indicator, I can do so by right-clicking and selecting Advanced and then Deep History. You can see that it now has an asterisk displayed after the H. I'll set that back. How you do that in different tools is likely to vary. Now I'll add the two new transitions. Firstly, from "Are you sure?" dialog to the final state, and I'll set the trigger to OK button clicked. And then the transition from "Are you sure?" dialog to the history pseudostate. And I'll set the trigger on this transition to cancel button clicked. So if the user leaves the page here, the dialog will appear. If they click the cancel button, it will go back in here, and the history indicator means that whatever state the user interface was in, whether it was in room list, device list, on-off device info, whatever, it will return to that state. If they click OK, then it will leave. So in this movie, we've looked at the choice, junction, and history pseudostates, and we've added a choice pseudostate and a history pseudostate into the diagram.